Live from the Buckeye TV studios at The Ohio State University, it's the National Hour, Scarlet and Gray Sports Radio's live discussion of the world of sports on and off campus. Well, it's official. After shocking the world by beating a 1 seed, advancing to the Sweet 16 and then the Elite 8, 9 seed Wichita State shocks the world again, this time by beating 2 seed Ohio State to reach the Final Four. The fact that they're called the Shockers isn't so cute anymore. Here to talk about it are Darius Thigpen and Jordan Pollock.
And I was having a real good day until just about then, being reminded about the Wichita State Shockers going out and, well, we don't even need to say it, but yeah, Ohio State, Wichita State. That game got out of hand really quick. It was a game where Ohio State was down as much as 20 points in the game. A good second half comeback for Ohio State, but too little, too late. The Buckeyes lose 70-66, and Wichita State moves on to the Final Four after beating the Buckeyes in the Elite Eight matchup. Jordan, I mean, we've been going back and forth, haven't really talked about it, haven't wanted to talk about it, but now we are.
Yeah, it's kind of upsetting. I didn't even want to talk about it on the show this time, but I guess we have to. So,
Yeah.
They came out looking like they were overlooking the game almost. It was like they came out, they're like, all right, we got a 9 seed or 8 seed, whatever. I don't even, honestly, whatever.
Right.
Whatever they were, they came out, and Ohio State looked flat. They just weren't hitting their jump shots. Deshaun was putting up poor percentage of shots. They just did not look in sync from the get-go. And because of that, they were down 13 at the half and had to claw their way back like they have been all tournament. But you knew sooner or later those shots were not going to fall. And I think it came to bite them in the rear end.
Well, I mean, Ohio State had been living dangerously in the past couple games. You saw the Arizona game and even going back to the Iowa State game where teams were hitting outside shots and the Buckeyes had been down in each of those games. But in the Wichita State game, it was more than just shots going down. They were severely out-rebounded by Wichita State. Wichita State seemed like they wanted it more. The Shockers went out and played more aggressive basketball than the Buckeyes did for the entire game. The Buckeyes just didn't want it as much as Wichita State did. And Ohio State finally turned it on, but too little too late. I mean, LaQuinton Ross was really key in that comeback for the Buckeyes, falling 4 points short. They even cut it to 3 at one point and had a chance to tie it up. But for Ohio State, in a game where they were obviously the favorites going in, could not perform up to what you would expect them to, and missing a lot of shots, as you said.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of shots, but mostly jump shots, and they never really adjusted and started to take it to the hoop until they were down 13 in the second half and down 20 in the second half.
Well, what I didn't understand was, well, like we said, they shot poorly. They shot 31% from the field, under 25% from beyond the arc. But the thing that really bothered me about this whole game was the fact that we were a much bigger team than the Shockers are. And we did not use that to our advantage. Thad decided to stay with the small lineup that was successful and did get us to where we were. But you have to play to your opponent, not to your team almost. And when I say that, I mean, you see that Amir Williams, who's near 7 feet, has 2 or 3 inches on their center. Why not feed him down low? You had Ravenel, who's bigger than stronger. We didn't feed them. Even Deshaun Thomas, who was being guarded by someone who's arguably smaller, decided to stay around the perimeter instead of he should have been down low. And I think it was the small adjustments that Dad normally makes or normally is prepared for that didn't come into account this game. And I really do feel we just were overmatched. Not overmatched, but like mentally overmatched.
We saw certain players, I mean, had bad shooting nights. I mean, Aaron Kraft was 2 of 12 from the floor. Even though Deshaun Thomas did get 24 points, took him quite a few shots to get there. And you do have to question the game plan. I mean, a lot of jump shots, not as many inside moves, not as many layups, not as many attacking moves. I mean, there was, really no post offense at all for Ohio State. So you really have to look at Thad Matta and his game plan as much as anyone missing shots out there.
Yeah, it's hard. It's like I'm still like struggling to talk about this,
Right.
but I had someone who was actually at the game in Los Angeles, and what he told me because he sat right behind their basket while they were warming up, and he said they were just hitting every single jump shot they took. They looked like they were ready to go. And it's almost like the game started like this. It's like they forgot how to play. And I think it was a mixture of Kraft, who was starting to, he had all this confidence from games past. He was playing well. I think it was a little bit of Kraft, I think he was more like he was just forcing everything, trying to make sure, doing his typical drive, but forcing it where it normally just comes naturally to him. And they just looked at a sink, and I think they saw that they were down by so much to this Wichita State team who they were expected, the score should have been reversed. And I think they brought it down on themselves almost.
And you look at this Ohio State team, I mean, regardless of what anyone is going to say, they were in the Elite Eight, one of the last 8 teams in college basketball. Still a solid season for Ohio State, considering where they were. About the midway point of the year, Jordan and I don't want to say we wrote them off, but we definitely didn't have them going Elite Eight, going for a bid to the Final Four. They came back and played very well, winning double-digit, 10 straight to end the season before losing to Wichita State, a very impressive mark. And the Buckeyes were able to rebound from where they started this season. So you do have to give credit to this team for fighting back, staying in there when it looked like the Big Ten was going to be a runaway for Indiana or Michigan.
Yeah, you got to give them credit, like you said, that we didn't think they were going to do it. Like at one point, they were going to be an 8 or 9 seed. So yes, I understand that we got to give them credit, but we're Ohio State. We expect excellence. We expect Final Fours. We expect national championships. And for me to sit here and tell you guys that I am happy with the way our season started and where they ended, I honestly don't think I could, because even at the time I was still mad. And then you see them pick it up and they start performing and they start playing well, and you're like, you know what? We have a road to the national championship game. We really do. And there's always ups. It's sad.
I mean, and this is the part of the year where there's only 4 teams that are celebrating in the Final Four. So Ohio State fans, certainly not alone. But looking at the Big Ten, when Ohio State went and won the Big Ten tournament, as good as the Big Ten was during the regular season, you would assume that means Ohio State is going to go out and play well against these other teams. Didn't do quite as well in the NCAA tournament as hoped. And Ohio State, even though they did make it to the Elite Eight, they're not alone. Ohio State, Michigan State, Indiana,
Wisconsin
in the first round. The Big Ten did not do Minnesota. The Big Ten did not do as well as expected in the NCAA tournament. So by and large, I think that's one thing you can also take away from this year.
And all it's going to do is add on to that mantra that the Big Ten doesn't perform well in postseason play.
But looking ahead, it's not just the Big Ten. You do see some teams like Indiana, like Michigan. Trey Burke was just named Player of the Year. So you do see some bright spots in the Big Ten. But this Ohio State team is not done.
No.
The question is really whether or not Deshaun Thomas comes back. That's going to be a big question. But we will see LaQuinton Ross moving forward. He is going to be the number 1 scorer. We've seen him hit big shots. Obviously, that Arizona game, the go-ahead 3, when everyone knew it was going in. Oh, man, he was on fire at that point in the game. So you knew he was getting the ball. LaQuinton Ross has really stepped up in the tournament, had 19 points in that Wichita State game himself. We've seen Aaron Kraft coming back as a senior. Defensively, that backcourt with him and Shannon Scott is going to be really interesting to see. And then also Lenzel Smith is going to be a senior. There's going to be senior leadership on this team, something Ohio State hasn't had for the past couple of years, multiple seniors on one team. So we'll see what happens with the Buckeyes in the next season.
I think it's really going to come down to Deshaun's decision next year. I think their success is going to come off, and it's going to feed off that. Yes, we have LaQuinton Ross back, but I'm curious to see if we're going to stick with this 2-point guard backcourt, the Shannon Scott, Aaron Kraft, because I think we need more of a traditional 2 guy, because all year our struggles was shooting and it was scoring. And I also feel what's going to be a big part of this Ohio State Buckeye team next year is going to be the strength and tenacity that Amir Williams grows over this offseason. I think he needs to gain a few pounds, get a little bit stronger, and develop a little bit of an offensive game. Because defensively, he's there. He's got it. I think his offensive struggles is what really hurt the Buckeyes this year, because you look down the road, we've had all our success has been through big guys. We've had the Sullinger, we had Greg Oden, we had Lauderdale. All our success is through that. And I think Amir Williams really is going to be the key to this team next year. No one's thinking it, but I'm telling you it's going to come through him.
If he plays well, Ohio State would definitely be a much better team. Now, before we go to commercial, one more thing I think we should bring up. If you read The Lantern in the last couple of days, you saw that Deshaun Thomas put in a letter to the editor talking about Ohio State sports as a whole, talking about how proud he is to be a Buckeye. I mean, what did you get the chance to read this?
No, I actually missed that article, but it's good to see that. I mean, I really like seeing our players going out and outreaching to other sports that don't get as much credit. Like you look at basketball players, I've seen a lot of them recently, they are tweeting from the baseball games, which to me it's a big sport, but around campus it's not that popular. It's nice to see athletes supporting athletes.
And I really love to see Deshaun Thomas going out and being humble, giving credit to everyone around him, and not just trying to say, hey, look at me, look at what I did. Now I'm going to move on to the NBA. It was really refreshing to see him put in that input to the Lantern. So it was really great to see Deshaun Thomas, class act right there. Right?
Hopefully it's not a send-off.
Hopefully it's not a send-off. Hopefully we will see DT back next year for the Buckeyes. And we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to be moving on to the rest of college basketball, including Final Four trivia coming up here on the National Hour.
Welcome back to the National Hour. And now it's time for another session of sports-related trivia. Darius Thigpen is looking to score another title. Jordan Pollack is looking for revenge. And Ken Johnson is just looking to stay fly. Are you gentlemen ready?
I guess.
Yeah. I don't know if they caught this, but yeah.
The smiley face on the marker. I like
Yes, sir.
Just happened.
All right, I think we are
Have
ready.
a nice day / stay fly face. Very nice, Ken. Let's
All
see.
right. Trivia
And I
time.
am Manny Wilson. I will be your host for the evening festivities. As you know, we're about to play the Final Four this weekend. So the subject of today's questions are March Madness. In particular, we'll be focusing on the Final Four, at least for most of these questions. And they are all about, for anyone who might be confused, men's Division I from the year 2000 to the present, including the year 2000.
All right.
All right, and
Well,
the
the
way
questions
this
actually
works
come
is
from
we
that
have
time
7 questions because there are 7 rounds in the NCAA tournament now.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah, we thought so too. Once I finish reading the question, you will have 15 seconds to write down your answer on your respective dry erase boards. And again, I know it will be difficult, but please keep your eyes on your own dry erase board.
Never been good at that.
The player with the most points after 7 questions will be declared the March Madness Trivia Champion. Here comes your first question, gentlemen.
Oh boy.
Name the school with the most Final Four appearances from 2000 to the present. You have 15 seconds, and they start now. It's probably not who you'd think, considering how they did this year. But that's what the research shows. Let's see if your answers match the research. We're going to start with you, Darius, our defending champion.
All right.
What's your answer?
I went with the team that I cannot stand, but I do think they have possibly 3, the Florida Gators.
Florida Gators, most Final Four appearances.
That's what I was going to put. Damn.
Jordan, your answer.
I think I spelled it wrong, but Louisville?
Lu-
Yeah,
I spelled right.
That is actually correct. The
That's
correct
sweet.
spelling.
Well,
It's correct spelling.
Correct spelling, yes. Not necessarily the correct answer. Ken?
Well, I was thinking, in terms of, Michael Jordan's former college, University of North Carolina. Yeah.
Good answer. Good answer.
UNC.
Yes.
All right, so we have 1 for Florida, 1 for Louisville, 1 for
it's going to be the Gators.
University of North Carolina, and the
No, they
correct
won
answer is
Michigan
Michigan
State.
State
That was
University.
my next answer. And they beat Florida in the
Uh-huh.
national championship
Yep.
in 2000 because they
That's
got 3
right.
appearances. Michigan State has what, 4?
5, actually.
Five.
2000, 2001, 2005, 2009,
'cause they keep losing.
2010.
Yeah.
I could swore it was
And
Louisville.
Ken was actually close because UNC has 4 appearances: 2000, 2005, 2008, 2009.
They were very
So-
prosperous in the early 2000s. UNC. That's why
All
I picked
right.
them.
Okay.
Yeah, back in the day.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a look at our next question. Name the 3 schools seeded 9 or lower, that would be 10 through 16, to make it to the Final Four since 2000. 15 seconds, and they start now.
How many? 3 schools.
Let's see. One's fairly recent. It'll be interesting to see if you can come up with the other 2. Okay. Are you all finished writing?
No, no, they didn't make it there. I don't know.
Okay, I'm going to have to call time on you. Ken, we're going to start with you this time. What do you think?
Well, I only had 2, and I mean, one is obvious, and the other 2 you kind of have to really think on this one. But I had Wichita, and then I had St. Joe's, but I think I missed out on 2 out of the 3. So
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
we'll find out shortly. Jordan?
I went with Butler, Wichita State, and VCU.
Okay. And Darius.
I've got
Oh, they did.
George Mason,
They did.
VCU, and Butler.
It was George Mason. Larinaga led them there.
Okay. And the correct answer is, I'm not going to try to recite all of that. George Mason, VCU,
Oh
and
my
Wichita
God, that's right.
State.
Larinaga was the coach.
Butler was not at 9.
Yeah, you were very, very close. The lowest Butler was seeded was 8
Wait, which one did I have?
when
You
they made
didn't
it to the
have?
Final Four.
Yeah,
so
Wichita.
Close, but not quite.
How'd you not know that? It's right. It just happened.
So I thought Butler was
It
a
just
9.
happened.
With that in
'Cause I
mind,
thought Butler was a 9. I thought it
Yes,
was a
I-
typo.
So does he not get a point?
No, nobody gets a point.
Sweet. All right.
Do you not know how this game works? No, wait,
what
no.
now?
You got to get it all right.
All right. You know what?
Yes,
There's no partial points.
You know what?
Yeah, it's all or nothing, Jordan.
I'll take the partial point if you want to give it to me.
I'll take
though.
it too. I had 2.
Yeah, it's not like college. You don't get partial credit.
partial credit.
All right.
College class.
All
I should
right.
say.
All right. You guys got jokes.
Yes, we do, and plenty to spare. Question 3. Okay. Took a while to appear there. Name the only school to make consecutive Final Four appearances since 2000 while not being a number 1 or number 2 seed in either year. You have 15 seconds to come up with this one, and they start now. No hints this time. Although I haven't been giving you any hints, have I? All right. And time is up. Darius, we're going to start with you again.
Some low scores in this game today. Went with the Spartans of Michigan State.
Michigan State. All right. Jordan?
I'm going back with the Cardinals. Louisville.
Bill.
The Ville.
Are they known as Bill for short?
No, I just don't want to write the whole thing.
Okay. You only have 15 seconds. We understand. And Ken?
Well, I was going to go with the school that's next to University of North Carolina. I was going to go with Duke.
That's
Duke.
come on, Patino.
Well, Duke is certainly
We're
a
just
strong
bad at this.
possibility.
We didn't study.
And the correct answer is Butler
Butler.
University.
Did not realize they made back-to-back.
Yeah, I avoided the urge to say anything because I did kind of
Yeah.
sort of give away the answer in
You
the
would
last
have.
question.
You would have. If you had said they were low, I would have gotten that immediately.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I am trying to be fair, so. Well, I think we still have 3 zeros
Still
across
have
the
goose
board.
eggs.
Yep.
Yes, we do.
The
There
race
they
for
are.
1.
So
It's a pitcher's duel.
let's try again with question number 4. Name the 3 active head coaches who have won multiple national championships since the year 2000. You have 15 seconds, starting now. Let's see. 2 of them seem pretty obvious. Third one, well, might be obvious to a Buckeye. That's your only clue. So time is up. Ken, we'll start with you.
Well, the active coaches I had who have won multiple championships. I could be wrong on my third one, but
Nope.
I went with
I already know it's not.
Coach K. I went with the coach of UNC, and I went with Rick Pitino.
That's it.
'Cause we actually know his name.
Okay. Coach K, Coach UNC. If that happens to be right, we will give you the coach of UNC.
Okay.
What was the
Jordan,
last one you said?
What's your answer?
And Rick
And
Pitino.
Rick Pitino
Rick
is his
Pitino.
third answer.
All right, I have Coach K, Coach Boeheim, and Coach Donovan.
Coach K, Coach Boeheim. I don't think Boeheim is spelled
No, it
correctly,
is not.
but
Nope.
spelling does not count
All
in
right.
this game. And Darius?
I'll take extra credit for spelling his name right. Boeheim is Boeheim. And then Billy Donovan.
I don't see a third one on there.
And I did not have a third one. And blank. There's only 2. You guys lied.
Okay.
Well, Donovan I know has 2 because he had back-to-back.
Yeah, back-to-backs.
And the correct answer for this question,
Come on.
Roy Williams.
Billy Donovan, Coach K, or Mike Krzyzewski, and Roy Williams. See, Billy...
Rick Pitino only has 1.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was thinking. I was like, wait, he might only have 1. Yeah.
Let's see, Roy Williams, the
God,
coach of
that's so
UNC. Ken.
Yes.
He won one
in
with Kansas.
2005,
Kansas and
2009.
UNC.
Yeah,
Yep.
Coach
that's why I
K
didn't register.
in 2001,
'Cause I thought
2010.
UNC only won 1.
And Billy
That's
Donovan
we
from
had the
Florida
same-
in 2006 and 2007. The Buckeye faithful might remember 2007 because that is when they beat us for the national title.
By only 8 points.
Nice, huh?
Yeah.
As if what happened this past weekend wasn't painful enough. All right.
Anyways.
4 questions down, still no points on the board. Let's take a look
I
at
missed it by
question number
1
5.
every time.
Oh, same here. Of course.
Since 2000, there has been 1 national championship game that went to
Okay.
overtime.
Got this one.
Name either the schools that competed or the year.
Don't tell me
15.
y'all are struggling because I got this one.
All right. 15 seconds on the clock. Apparently one of you doesn't need them, but they're going to start now. Yeah, it looks like our audio person's fallen asleep at the switch back there. So you're going to get some extra time just because we're being generous. All right, time's almost up.
Wait, who'd they play?
Looks like Darius is doing a little decorating on his dry erase board there.
Yeah, he's just showing.
See, now
off.
watch me get this wrong too. That would be really embarrassing.
Who'd they?
It would. It would. So let's go ahead and start with you, Darius.
I got Memphis, Kansas, national championship game, rock chalk. Derrick Rose missed some free throws down the stretch. Mario Chalmers hit the three-pointer to put it into overtime.
Okay. That's a lot of information.
That is.
Yeah, that's the answer, just in case.
Well,
Wondering.
we only need the teams or the year. So we'll see if Memphis and Kansas is right. Jordan also says Memphis and Kansas.
Thought I saw some late scribbling over
Yeah,
there.
I thought I saw that too, but you know.
I mean, just putting it
I
out there.
erased the last one first. I erased and then went back to it. So
What did you have something else originally?
no, I had Memphis and then I had Kansas and then I erased it and then I just scribbled it back in.
Okay. Right on the buzzer.
Well, technically,
Yeah.
he would be right because Memphis only played in 1 national championship in the last 13 years. So
Right. Okay. And Ken.
Well, I just did a Brett Favre throw it up, see what happens. Gunslinger. I just said 2003.
2003. So you went for the year.
It was the Mario Chalmers,
Okay.
right?
Mario
That's what I
Chalmers.
knew. That's what it was.
And the correct answer is
five is
8.
Kansas versus Memphis.
because it was the Mario
2008.
Chalmers who hit the 3 to send it to overtime.
Yep.
So that
Remember
means
watching that game.
Darius and Jordan have actually
God, I
scored.
knew it.
And in that 2008
I was
national
so hesitant
championship
on- 'cause
game,
I was like, wait, was
Kansas
that-
won 75-68.
Because I kept thinking, did Mario Chalmers hit the game winner?
Mario
or was it for
Chalmers.
overtime? That's
Yep.
why I couldn't figure it out.
It's all about small ball. 1-0.
Well, fortunately, we didn't ask you about that. So
Oh,
we
I
just need
could
the
have
teams.
told you all that. Oh, yeah.
So, after 5 questions, these scores are Darius 1, Jordan 1, and Ken 0. Two
got a barn
questions
burner.
left, so you still have time to catch up, Ken. Let's take a look at question number 6. Not including this year, because Atlanta is hosting the Final Four this year. Atlanta has hosted the Final Four twice since the year 2000. Name the 2 schools that won national championships there. 15 seconds on the clock, starting now. It appears one of these schools we've actually mentioned in the last few minutes, and the other one, if you've been paying attention to Big Ten news, again, that's the only hint I'm giving you. Time is up. Ken, we're starting with you this time.
Well, you gave a hint that last 10 about if you paid attention to Big Ten news. Well, obviously, I kind of faltered on that, but I think at least one of my answers is correct. I went with Florida, UNC.
Florida and UNC. All right, Jordan?
Florida and Michigan State.
Florida and Michigan State. Florida seems to be the common theme so far, and
Well, because
Darius?
Florida is definitely right, but I have Syracuse. I'm not sure about that one. Florida won it in 2007 against the Buckeyes in Atlanta.
Right.
Remember that one for sure.
Yeah, you and the rest of the Ohio State University populace. And the correct answer is Florida and Maryland.
Maryland. I didn't even know they had won.
Wow,
Yes.
Wow.
Florida in 2007. Don't need to go much further into that. And Maryland back in 2002.
Maryland. Couldn't even name a
after
player on their
6
basketball team.
questions,
Oh, now I get
the
the Big
score
Ten
is still Darius 1, Jordan 1. I'm sorry, what?
Nothing.
The Big
And I
Ten, it
understood-
finally sunk
Hey, I
in.
kind of
I was
understood
thinking like
now,
Michigan State,
yeah.
checking up on Big Ten news because Iowa beat Maryland in the semifinals recently in the NIT, like a couple
Fun
of
fact.
days ago. Fun
Fun
fact,
fact.
yes, yeah. I just understood that. Yeah.
He was
Yeah,
talking about
maybe
Maryland
if I
joining
said
the
it
Big Ten.
earlier, maybe I could have given it.
Or no,
Maryland joining the Big Ten.
or
yeah.
that too. Yeah. Whoops.
All right, so there's
All
the
right.
scores. If Darius or Jordan answers this last question correctly, you will win. Ken, you must answer this question correctly to stay in the game. Hope that Darius and Jordan miss in order to force a tie.
Needs to pull a Mario Chalmers.
All right, let's go.
That's a pretty good analogy, actually.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Question 7 of 7. Name the only player to record 2 triple-doubles in the NCAA tournament since the year 2000. You have 15 seconds to come up with this one, and they start now.
I know he had one. But
If it helps, this was in the last couple of years. It's a Big Ten school, thankfully.
all right, I got it.
All right. Gonna let Darius finish writing.
All right.
Jordan, Ken, you done?
Well, yeah, I went with the Big East on this one, and then you said Big Ten. I went with Melo, as in Carmelo Anthony.
Carmelo Anthony
Yes.
of Syracuse. And is this in jeopardy, Jordan? You're not supposed to answer our questions with a question of your own, or in this case, a question mark.
All right. I really appreciate the Big Ten hint, I think I got this right. I mean, the dude I'm thinking of is called a poor man's Magic Johnson, Draymond Green of Michigan State.
Draymond Green. For the game. Again, if you have this right, you have won. The correct answer is Draymond Green
Booyah.
from Michigan State.
He's the
Let's
champ.
see. 2011 round of 64 in a loss to UCLA, 78-76. And he did it again the very next year, this time in a win over LIU Brooklyn, 89-67. And funny you should mention poor man's Magic Johnson because he was the first to record 2 triple-doubles in the NCAA tournament since Magic Johnson in 79.
All right, fun fact though. Technically, Evan Turner also has 2, but one of those
it's-
triple-doubles was with 10 turnovers in one of those games. So it was a bad triple-double if you really want to go with that.
Yeah, a very, very dubious triple-double, one for which he probably doesn't want to be recognized.
No.
I'm sure he appreciates you mentioning it on closed-circuit television.
Shout out to my boy E.T., Evan Turner.
Of course, we are on the internet via web stream, so anybody in the world could be watching us right now. Okay, so after 7 questions, Ken is in 3rd place with 0 points, Jordan with 1 point. And thank you for that update. Darius is the winner with 2 points. He was the Super Bowl trivia champion, and now he is also the March Madness trivia champion. Congratulations, Darius.
I'm pretty happy. I mean, honestly, 2 times. This was a grinded out one right here. 2-1 final. It was really, really tough. The competition was great. They really showed up, played some great defense on this trivia, but just able to have a little bit more this time. Jordan sending me some messages over here, so I think it's about time to move on.
I'm dying of curiosity. And I guess we're not going to see it.
Yeah.
The dry erase board.
Okay.
Oh, it's funny.
And that is the end of this edition of March Madness Trivia. And when we come back, we're going to talk about Major League Baseball, some big contracts, and some big events happening on opening day. We'll see you after the break. We're back with more of the National Hour. How do we know that spring has arrived here in Ohio? The weather? Heh, I don't think so. We know it's spring because baseball season has officially started. Let's talk about that early season action with Darius Thigpen, Jordan Pollock, and Ken Johnson.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. You are watching the National Hour, or you could be listening to us on Scarlet and Gray Radio. Either way, we're happy you're with us. So, as Manny alluded to, baseball season is upon us. Before we even get into the chunk of what's happened in the past few days, let's talk about all the money that's been flying around the MLB recently. You've seen a lot of re-signings. You saw Buster Posey get a 9-year, $167 million deal, which was crazy to give a catcher that long.
Yeah.
But even crazier was Verlander's 5-year, $140 million deal. And then you see shortstop Elvis Andrus getting another 8-year, $120. And it just gets you thinking, baseball's got a bright future if they are shelling money out like this.
I mean, especially when you see the way all the major organizations are heading, looking at the 2 LA teams, the Dodgers and Angels out there, the way the money's just gone up. I mean, obviously the Yankees and Red Sox were the first 2 teams to really send it in this direction, but all the other teams are starting to follow suit. I mean, free agency has gotten to be ludicrous, so just to re-sign a guy is taking a lot of money. And we've seen some teams like the Tampa Bay Rays have to give up talent because they can't afford to re-sign guys. And then you see Carl Crawford go off and make tens of millions of dollars. So it's really driven up the market and made it so that baseball is becoming more of a big market sport. But, you know, it's going to be interesting to see what happens to these small market teams.
Definitely. I mean, these are some ridiculous numbers that's just being doled out. 167 million, 140 million, 120 million. That's just being doled out to players. Granted, they're very high quality players like, Posey, Verlander, possibly Kershaw maybe in a few days. There's been talks about his $200 million deal. But, this is what happens when, there's no salary cap. It's basically the Wild West is basically, teams giving a big offer to a player, and then you see, a team like the Yankees or the Dodgers, one up that offer, put $20 million more on the offer for, their marquee player. That's just how it is, and that's how agents are really just playing this right now in this no salary cap baseball, big extravagant era that is in Major League Baseball right now.
Speaking of no salary, really, the Dodgers have an issue coming up with the man who basically opening day put the team on his back, Clayton Kershaw, looking for his contract extension. Rumors have it he might be the first $200 million pitcher. Hopefully his arm can live up to that. Robinson Cano, David Price also in contract years. So a lot to look forward to with the money being flown. But more recently, there's news. Opening day was upon us this week, and boy, was it a great one. You might as well start with the National League favorites, the Washington Nationals. Bryce Harper, 2 home runs in his first 2 at-bats. What do you expect to see from the Nationals this year?
Basically, just like their manager said, it's either win the World Series or bust. They have great expectations. They have all of their great players healthy. They've started out very well in the season, starting out 2-0. Like you mentioned, Bryce Harper had 2 home runs in his first 2 bats. Also, Strasburg, without limits, he, pretty much got 19 batters out in a row.
Right.
And he continued that pretty much into the second game. Just capitalizing off of what they did last year.
Right.
Just keep on getting better and better to the point where, winning games, leads into the playoffs and a high seed.
Right, and one thing that you really got to see was the young team stepping up and getting to see teams like the Nationals really playing well early on. It is still early, so you can't really judge too much off of a couple home runs in the first couple of bats for Bryce Harper. Still really impressive. I do want to see what Strasburg does without any rains. And I just still think it's going to be really interesting to see these younger teams against some of these older teams like the Yankees. And you saw what happened to them, devastated by injuries. And CC Sabathia looked awful on opening day.
Yeah, speaking of the Yankees and their veteran, if you want to call them a veteran team, lost their first, let me get this right, their first home opener in 12 years, falling to the Red Sox 8-2. Now, this could be a sign to come for this Yankee, the kind of season they might have. I'm personally not buying that much into it, but I will tell you teams I am buying into who opened up the season with her extravagant game, the Angels and Reds. These are 2 teams. First, they're playing opening interleague. So the Angels battled the Reds for 13 innings. Angels winning 3-1. Then the Reds coming back and taking the next 2. So,
how awesome is that though? It's like you can get a potential World Series in this opening series. In the first 3 days of baseball, you could see a potential World Series matchup. I think that was awesome. The interleague play for the first games, it seems weird, but I think we can get used to it, especially when you're seeing a great matchup like the Reds and Angels went to extra innings 13 on opening day. A great game. The Angels won 3-1. Iannetta put the team on his back. And then the Reds winning the last couple. I think it's going to be something fun to watch, seeing these matchups. But yeah, the Angels and Reds are both going to be great teams to watch if you're in Cincinnati or in LA.
Definitely. It was a pitcher's duel in the first game, and then, the hitters really started hitting in the next 2 games. Joey Votto got going, Brandon Phillips got going, and it just became, all-out, hitter, what they was looking for with the batters actually stepping up to the plate.
So, baseball season is upon us. We got a lot to look forward to. We'll promise you this is not the only coverage we're going to give you. When we come back, Final Four talk. Right here, you're watching the National Hour.
It's almost closing time here on the National Hour. We're going to turn our attention back to the NCAA to review the Final Four matchups. Now, which do you suppose is more painful? The fact that the Buckeyes fell short of the Final Four, or that a certain school up north did reach the Final Four? For the answer, let's turn to Ken Johnson, Jordan Pollock, and our two-time trivia champion.
Yeah, put up the sign.
Darius
Put up
Big
the sign. Yeah.
It's great to be back here on the National Hour alongside Jordan and Ken. I'm Darius. Now, it is just about closing time here on the National Hour, so we're going to kind of wrap things up. But before we do, we're going to talk about the Final Four, the elite teams in basketball this year: Wichita State, Louisville, Syracuse, and Michigan. You know, out of all those teams, only one number one seed, Louisville, who is the number one overall seed. It's going to be interesting to see. The first game is going to be Wichita State and Louisville playing, and that's going to be a game where it could be a mismatch. Louisville, of course, coming in as the number one overall seed, is going to be favored in that game against the 9 seed, Wichita State. Guys, we saw what Wichita State could do against a Big Ten team, against Ohio State, but what's going to happen when they go up against the backcourt of Russ Smith and Peyton Siva?
Well, I have Louisville winning this game just because, like you said, the backcourt. And they, easily get up and down the court and control the pace of a game like that, like immediately. They, as soon as they get the rebound, it's off to the races and, to get a score. I will say Wichita State, the key to that game is Clay Anthony early. If he gets going, Wichita State could possibly stay in the game, but I like Louisville in this one.
I'm going to go with Louisville for two words, sums it up: emotional and motivation. They got Kevin Ware coming. He's on that whole incident. They're going to really put the team. They're really going to shine.
Yeah, I mean, we can't mention this game without mentioning Kevin Ware, who is a Louisville player, went down with a horrific leg injury in that game in the Elite Eight, and it was really terrifying to see. All of the Duke players, Coach K got up, and they were squeamish from what happened as well. It was a really horrific injury to see. So Kevin Ware, he is recovering and will be in that game, or at that game in Atlanta. So a lot of emotion, as you said, Jordan, for Louisville. I believe they will win that game. Now, Michigan and Syracuse, the 2-3 zone against Tim Hardaway, Player of the Year Trey Burke, and Michigan's up and down pace. I mean, what's going to happen in this one?
I like Michigan in this one, as tough for me to say. I like Michigan. I think their explosive offense will, exploit and take out the very complicated 2-3 zone that Coach Boeheim runs, and Trey Burke and Glenn Robinson and those guys will go to the national championship game.
I'm going with Syracuse. I think the 2-3 zone will stop. I think this fast-paced Michigan team, and also, I just hope Michigan loses. I just can't pick them to win. So, Syracuse, Boeheim, here we go.
I mean, I think I'm going to go with Michigan just because I know they can run, and that's the way to beat the zone, to beat them down court. And if Michigan is able to get out and run, that would really take out Syracuse. So, guys, we have possibly Louisville, Michigan, or Louisville, Syracuse. We'll see what happens. Wichita State, though, not out of it until the games happen. We'll see what happens next week. But for right now, we're on to our National Hour final stories, starting with Ken Johnson.
Thank you, Darius. The recent report of Auburn players receiving money and having grades altered to go play in the national championship game is another crushing blow to college football. The NCAA really needs to look at its system and ask, is it really working? This isn't the first Auburn controversy a la Cam Newton, but these allegations should awake the NCAA to try and make changes to a system that doesn't apply to today's kind of players. Otherwise, things like this will keep coming out of it with no sight of stopping.
We've gotten used to the notion of money and frantic deals equating wins in baseball. We've also gotten used to the big buyers who are usually there. But right up there with the Dodgers, Angels, and Blue Jays of this past offseason were the Cleveland Indians. The Lake Erie Warriors changed their normal winter routine of going into hibernation and replaced it with one of signings guys like Nick Swisher, Michael Bourne, and Mark Reynolds, and have acquired the likes of Drew Stubbs, Daisuke Matsuzaka, and Scott Kazmir. It's a small sample size, but the Indians are 2-0 on the season, going for a sweep tonight of the improved Jays. Here's to the little team that could. Roll Tribe.
As many of you have heard, Rutgers basketball coach Mike Rice was fired after videotape aired showing coach verbally and physically abusing his players. This is totally understandable that he was fired, but what this situation has done has made me upset with the recent softness America has been showing. In today's day and age, coaches have no way of performing without being scrutinized. High school coaches today have been fired for making players run too long, not allowing parents to decide who should be starting, and by not being able to verbally say what they feel. I think that today America has made it okay for kids to accept mediocrity because if they don't get what they want, all they have to do is complain to an administrative board to get their coach in trouble. Kids today are for a rude awakening when they hit the real world, and things won't always turn out the way they want, and the parents won't be there to defend them.
Well, I think that's going to do it for us here on the National Hour today. Some more news and notes. Cleveland Indians going for the sweep. Jordan, what are you looking to this weekend?
Dodger baseball!
Dodger baseball. Ken, what you got?
And Final Four.
Final Four, of course. I don't know. I might be watching baseball and no basketball with the recent happenings of last weekend. So, thank you for everyone watching. I'm Darius Thigpen.
I'm Jordan Pollock.
And I'm Ken Johnson.
And I'm the two-time champion of trivia. Peace, y'all.
This is Manny Wilson speaking for The National Hour, a Scarlet and Gray sports radio production in association with Buckeye TV.